Hi, how y'all doing? William Davis with A.P.C Photography. So, funny story. You ever try to do a live stream for yourself and have every disaster you can have happen? I did when I'm trying to do this live stream to discuss Sony's RAW and Apple ProRes from an Atomos. Um, if you've had tons of alerts, my apologies, especially because it's late at night. No one likes those alerts. So, I'm going to get right into it. Sony does seem to have a RAW type functionality with some of its footage versus the RAW from Apple ProRes, and I'm going to show you how it works on DaVinci Resolve. And then tomorrow we're going to discuss how you can actually make your footage available to do this. I'm going to give you a little bit of the answers, and well, let's dive right into it. So if you're interested in going into a RAW format for all of your video work, it is definitely possible now inside of DaVinci Resolve. So these .move files are all either in Apple 422 or they're in ProRes. The one I've selected, the little clip right here, is actually in ProRes RAW, and then these two clips, oddly enough, are in a H.264 long GOP. One of them has been transcoded over to a fake all intro, and the other has been left as it is, but transcoded over also. And in this transcoding, I've switched it from a normal Sony file to, which is a .264, to a .mkv file. So you'll see it right here where it says our MXF file, which is the main concept file, which is something you can turn in a professional application. And this is very unique because with that, if you go into the color screen on DaVinci Resolve, you got your normal stuff and you go into RAW, and normally you go from camera metadata to clip. Then you have your plugin, in this case it's just standard, and you can select your ISO. You can decide if you want to do hybrid log gamma instantaneously to have it automatically taken care of, or you can switch over to just like you would on any raw data, the S-Log3, Gamma Cine 3. Pretty easy setup, and generally when I'm in this, and I like to take advantage of the color transforms spaces, so no, I'm not using multiple noids in this particular one. I'm just going to use one. I'll come over here, Cine, do an S-Log3, and there. Now you got the S-Log3 look, and then I'll go to a red 4, red 4. So red, and then you get a little bit different color space here. But now let's go over to these two faux RAW files. This gets kind of crazy. If I go over here and select clip, I actually now have more functionality than I would with my RAW file. Now this could be the fact that whenever you're using Catalyst Browse, you get a ton of metadata. And I can show you that real quick. Let me drop out of, let me remove this. Stop sharing that. Where'd you go, Catalyst Browse? There you are. All right, let's jump back into here. So this is Catalyst Browse. And let's go over here and take a look at this video here. This is where I transcoded it, and we'll definitely get deeper in that tomorrow. But here is one of the most interesting things about working with Sony, and the reason why I like working with Sony. Number one, most importantly, all the metadata is here down the road if I'm working with any particular client, high-end, mid, or entry-level client, including if I get asked a question, which gamut was this shot? And I can look at that real quick. What color space? I can look at that real quick. Was it manual exposure? I can look at that. Autofocused. I can look at the size of the sensor, the shutter angle. What was the dB gain? All of it. This is really amazing about Sony footage. With that, you can also do something called transcoding. Basically, that's just rendering it again, but changing some information about it. And for example, there's an option to do main concept or MXF files, and these are kind of important if you're doing super high-end projects or mid-level high-end projects, because they tend to ask for this extra bit of metadata. And also, just one little sidebar note, and we'll get into this in another video, almost all the Sony files I have seen since the A7 IV have a UMID number, which means if you're a video producer and production manager like me and produce videos, you're protected on your copyright. I'll get into that another day. But that's basically how I was able to transcode this footage. Now let's remove this. Let's get over to the fun part, which is DaVinci Resolve. That's what y'all came here for. Let's look at this real quick. My ADHD mind's going crazy here. All right, so when we get into this here, we now see what looks like a RAW type footage setup, which is pretty cool. So if we look at this, I can change color temperature any way I want to. I can change tint. I can even change exposure, which is insane, by the way. I can change sharpness. And then we really get into the fun parts. Come on. Shadows, highlights, color boost, desaturation or saturation, middle tones, play with lifts. This is the same as working with any other RAW footage, but I'm using it in DaVinci Resolve with normal Sony footage. Now, I know this seems a little absurd to be doing all these crazy, weird things with this file, but the reason why I'm doing it is to show you that it has a lot of flexibility. One of the things I tend to do is I do this color space. If you look over to the right, which is covered, I tend to do the red color space because I happen to like it. It's really good to work with. And see how this red over here is popping? Not to be crazy about it, this red's popping. The reason why it's popping and it's not going more towards a green is because of the color space we're using, which is the gamut.cine. If you were to use, and this is the other part I find really interesting, if you were to use the gamut 3, and since this is sensor data it's pretty much using, you'll notice this has more of an, it's not a very good color. So it's really weird that you can't unsee this burgundy here. You see that burgundy that right there? And you see that vibrancy right there? This is the interesting thing about shooting in Cine and Gamut without Cine. One leans towards reds, one leans towards greens. There's also a huge benefit. Being able to switch between the two, especially if a client wants to have a little bit different look, you can do this now, or have been able to do this, and it just wasn't really in the formula of what I've been using. And this is by far one of the coolest features I found in this. Now, if we just go over a regular coloring, this is where slopes and everything else just becomes easier. Now, most are going to ask, why am I not using multiple noids? I was a photo editor for years. I kind of know how to blend all this stuff together, kind of, without having to do 15 noids. Now, there are some specific things that are great about adding a secondary noid or a third noid, especially if you're going to do section by section. But if you're just doing a flat color adjustment to get it good enough to deliver what we, in my team, calls the 80% deliverable, which means that's what 80% of the clients would consider done and finished, This is all you really need to do. And it works out pretty good. But the nice thing is, when I'm working with this, it's very easy to get a nice color once we've kind of got the basics done. And some of this I just do by feel. Come on. And I want to get some darks. I want to get the blacks just about right. Come on. Want to keep his skin tones right where they're at right now, which they're looking good. Now, you can't see this going to full screen, but I can, and that's actually looking better. Actually, it looks pretty good there. The exterior looks good. The reflection looks good. We're a little bit of noise in there. So I'm going to come over here. And then, as we know, Sony's are a bit sharpened. So with this, I don't have to go in and de-sharpen it. So obviously, it looks like Sony adds some sharpening, and if I go into here, I think this is going to be good. Yep, that's going to look good. So there's some artificial sharpening that's being done with the S-Log and to compensate for the lens itself. Now I'm pretty much at what I would call an 80% deliverable. I would probably do one small thing to this. I like to play with the Luma a little bit to get some of that grain out of there and to make it a little less sharp. Because a lot of people do not like that artificially overly sharpened look. But this is what I would call an 80% delivery. Now, for those who do a deeper coloring, you can add in a bunch of other noise and we can start working on brushing this, raising up this, or getting rid of this extra bit of highlight here. All possible. But it's not really a big thing in my category right now because the idea is simply to put, I just want a good, easy image to work with for a client. And most of these clients are looking for something that's going to be returned within 24 hours, sometimes 72 hours. And they're just going to be on the websites. But anyway, I want to talk about the option of doing RAW here. Now, if we come over here, we go into the clip, and we play with the RAW again, it's just going to look good. So, I don't say this is just my attempt at talking about this in the middle of the night because I was excited about it. Sony has RAW without needing to use the Atomos recorder. So that's kind of nice. We'll talk about this more another day.